here are the top 13 areas to live around the Tampa, Florida metro area. Here we go. I'm Sam with Living in Tampa, and as always, we make these videos for you to understand what it's like to live and move to the whole Tampa area. We have an awesome list for you today, but let me set it up a little bit. So we helped a few hundred people, families, clients move to the area over the past couple of years. And there's some consistencies. There's even some consistencies behind why people choose certain areas. So we're gonna do a quick tour around the map. We're gonna not put these in any particular order, except for a way on the map they make sense to me. And you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. But let's jump right into it. And these are areas that our clients have actually chosen. Now, they're the best for those clients for very specific reasons, and I'll hit on those reasons a little bit on each of these areas. Now, let's start with West Chase. West Chase is really a suburb within the city of Tampa. Now, it's not really in Tampa proper, it's just outside of that area, but it is connected to that area very easily. Now, as you get on the far west side of West Chase or the north side of West Chase, it does feel a little bit more rural, and you have kind of, bigger neighborhoods off of the road, but it is like a master planned community right there kind of in the middle. And people choose that area because of a very specific feel. It just feels finished. It feels very accessible. It still feels busy, but not in the city, and it feels suburban, but not isolated out away from everything. It does have a really unique kind of vibe. Also, because of where it sits on the map, you're not too far from the beach, you're not too far from downtown Tampa, you really kind of sit in the middle because you're on the west side of Hillsborough County, which means the next county over is Pinellas County, where the beaches are. So you do have easy access to a bunch of different areas because of that. Now, lumping in with West Chase a little bit is kind of Citrus Park. It borders it in areas you don't always notice the difference between the borders. A lot of the towns around the Tampa area are like that, where you can't really tell you went from one town to the other. Citrus Park is one of those that's right there by West Chase, really the northeast side of West Chase. Okay, so another area that's kind of right joining those areas is Carrollwood. So number 2 on the list is Carrollwood. And I often lump Carrollwood in with Northdale. It's kind of a similar vibe, but a little bit older. So it has kind of this slower suburban feel, but is right there off of Dale Mabry, big north-south road. It's very kind of in the middle of it, but without being too in the middle of it. Very similar reasons to West Chase that people would choose it, but unless your budget is pretty high, you're limited in Carrollwood to some older, smaller houses. Now, there's still quaint neighborhoods in the middle of that, but the really interesting neighborhoods in Carrollwood are older 70s, 80s homes that are around these couple lakes and have this really unique vibe, huge mature trees. People have made fun of me for years about talking about how mature the landscaping is in the Carrollwood area, but it is. It's just a few decades older than everything around it, you can tell. Okay, now as we go from Tampa across the bay to St. Petersburg, a lot of our clients choose St. Petersburg to live. They typically want a little younger vibe. They want easy access to good food and drinks and events and nightlife and stuff like that. St. Petersburg has that in droves and in a lot of different areas. Actually, we've been selling a lot of houses in the Distant Heights area because it's kind of this up and coming neighborhood that's similar to historic Kenwood and further down the path of development. So as like Central is developing further toward the west, toward the beach, that downtown corridor is getting connected away out to Distant Heights. And it's just a lot of potential. There's a lot of bang for your buck out there. Now, typically our clients that are moving to St. Petersburg don't have kids, or if they do, they're sending them to private school. But I've said it again and again, what really makes St. Petersburg unique is actually the people that live in it. It's the community. So about 250,000 people there in St. Petersburg, and they would hate to even be lumped in as a part of the Tampa area. They have their own vibe, they have their own culture, and it's super cool, honestly. St. Petersburg is surrounded by water, really kind of on every side. Of course, some houses were damaged in these last storms, the end of 2024. Those areas are very easily identifiable, but St. Petersburg has a lot of old, charming neighborhoods. A lot of old, charming neighborhoods are not built to current codes of 2025, but there's a lot of updates that have happened to a lot of these homes. There's a lot of pockets of really cool homes. Actually, one of our clients, an investor, they want to buy all these old Spanish houses in the Allendale area, which were all built by this one builder back in like the 50s. And they want to buy a bunch of these and renovate them and make them like perfect like they were when they came out in the 50s. They're really passionate about that. And that's a very simple example of the kind of people that live in St. Petersburg. They want to keep it charming, they want to keep it cool, they want to keep this community growing and thriving, and that's a really cool part about St. Pete and why a lot of people choose it. Okay, that was number 3 on the list. Number 4, we're gonna go up north a little bit to Dunedin. A lot of people fall in love with Dunedin from afar, and then when they're here, it just confirms their love for it, and then sometimes rules it out because there's not a lot of bigger houses, not a lot of newer houses. If they want to get to a certain school, they got to be on this one specific area, and then the budget, and it's tricky to find the right thing in Dunedin, especially because it's pretty small. It's like 36,000 people in Dunedin in a pretty small geographic area. Dunedin has a lot of similar features to St. Petersburg in that the community is super engaged. People really love living in Dunedin, and they love it for all kinds of reasons. You know, the stuff on the weekends, the beach being really close, the just kind of small town vibe. In this kind of town, you have like a little old downtown. There's no Chick-fil-A down there. There's nothing like that. And it has a really local vibe. People often love Dunedin for that. Now, it's also really easy to get to beaches from Dunedin. So on the north side, you have Dunedin Beach, Dunedin Causeway. Then you go out to Honeymoon Island, which is a state preserve at the end of the causeway. Then you can take a ferry over to Caladesi Island, which is one of my favorites. And there's all kinds of stuff out there. Out on Caladesi Island, which I'll do a video for you guys this summer about this. You can rent a kayak and go through the mangroves, and they have these like tunnels out on that island of mangroves. Super cool. Our clients that end up in Dunedin, they're typically looking for a 3 to 4 bedroom house with a pool. They're typically spending around $600,000 on that. And they're trying to choose an area that's in the golf cart zone. So a big chunk of Dunedin, you can drive golf carts everywhere. And a lot of people moving to Florida from across the country are looking for that kind of vibe. That's super common. And see here this little clip of Nikki and Blake. They bought in Dunedin, super cool house, 3-bedroom house with a pool, old house, but kind of renovated, backs up to a preserve that connects to a park called Hammock Park. There's a little chapel in Hammock Park that I got married in 10 years ago. And they're also in the golf cart zone. They moved from San Diego, and they were looking for some kind of like beachy vibe. Vibe was like everything to them, and that's why this house, this town, this neighborhood perfectly fit the bill. Okay, we're gonna continue going north for number 5, Palm Harbor. We do a lot of North Pinellas County. Next is gonna be Tarpon Springs, but Palm Harbor, around 60,000 people, super residential. There are a couple little areas in Palm Harbor that have old charming downtown, but it's mostly just neighborhoods and a couple well-known golf courses. There is a little bit of new development on that golf course, you can see right there at Innisbrook, but overall it's just neighborhoods. There's some newer houses you can find, but not necessarily new construction other than that one right there. You can live on the golf course, you can live on the water, you can live in an old 1920s house right by the water in Crystal Beach, or you can go over to the other side and live in Cobb's Landing on the lake. So Palm Harbor does touch Lake Tarpon, but real quickly, why people choose Palm Harbor is typically because it's a little slower pace than further south, and the schools are really good. It has really good public schools that you don't have to apply to get into. You're not part of the magnet program. You can just go to them if you live in these areas. One of the biggest downsides about Palm Harbor to a lot of our clients is if they work in Tampa or St. Pete, it's just not a pleasant commute at all. Now, I don't think any commute is pleasant, but this one especially, because you're gonna end up on US 19, which is a horrible road to commute on, or you're gonna end up on Tampa Road. It's just not ideal. It's not for commuting. But if you can work in the area, or you're working at home, or you're okay with a rugged commute 5 days a week, or you only have to go 3 days a week, whatever it is, then it's a good option too. Okay, number 6, Tarpon Springs. I'm actually in Tarpon Springs right now. My house that flooded just a couple blocks over here, had to deal with some stuff over there today. Somebody came on one of our webinars recently, and if you want to come to one of our webinars, we'd love to have you there. Free, open to the public, just register down in the description. So Chad was on there and he's like, hey, I've got a boat. I want to live in a 4-bedroom house, and this is my budget, and where should I go? My first question is, do you need to commute anywhere? He's like, occasionally to the airport. I'm like, okay, what's your max distance from the airport? And he said an hour. I'm like, okay, Tarpon Springs, no question. You got more bang for your buck. You have way more water exposure, and it's just charming. They have the first Fridays downtown where they block off all of downtown. Second Saturdays, there's something out at Sunset Beach. There's all kinds of stuff like that, and it has kind of this quiet, quaint kind of vibe. A lot of towns in Pinellas County specifically have that because they're older towns. They have an old downtown. They have, down on Tarpon Avenue, there's old department stores owned by the old families that, started this town. So you have a lot of that kind of old, charming vibe. If any of these towns are resonating with you, we want to hear from you. Give us a call, text, or email anytime. We are a team of realtors here in the Tampa area, and we'd love a chance to earn your business. But Tarpon Springs is only about 25,000 people. It's actually a pretty small town. There's a lot of waterfront in Tarpon Springs. I don't remember the number. It's like 50 miles or something. Now, there is a lot of older homes here. This town was started in 1887. My house that flooded was built in 1962. It actually wasn't in a flood zone when it was built. It was rezoned a few years later to be a flood zone. Just if you're buying in a town like this, we can guide you to the areas that are not prone to flood. Now, if something did flood in these past storms, it will be disclosed through your realtor. So there's a new flood disclosure happened after Hurricane Helene last year, where it just has to be disclosed. Now, it's kind of vague. They disclose how high the water was, and that can tell you a lot. But one of the things we love to do is go interview the neighbors about the floods. It's kind of fun. All right, number 7 on our list. We're gonna keep going north and start heading east a little bit to Newport Richey. Pinellas County in Tarpon Springs is honestly a little prejudiced toward Newport Richey. Now, there are some areas in Newport Richey that aren't that nice. Old houses kind of falling apart. But there's places like that in Tampa, there's places like that in Clearwater and St Petersburg. In all of these towns in the area, once they get over about 100,000, you kind of have some of this deterioration in some areas and new development in other areas. Newport Richey, though, is about 150,000 people. It's the biggest town in Pasco County, and it has waterfront, it has old downtown, it has suburbs that are 20 years old, and it has some brand new suburbs. They're actually building there in Longleaf, the final phase of Longleaf, which is right on the border of Newport Richey and Odessa. Then another huge new development, Newport Corners, which is further up by me. They're building 3,500 homes or something, having to put in stoplights. It goes on both sides of the little road. It's gonna be a big development, and they're starting to build pretty fast there. They're not actually selling yet. We have quite a few clients that are interested in buying there. If you do want to get on the VIP list there at Newport Corners, give us a message. One of the interesting things about that neighborhood is it's right along Little Road, meaning you can get down into the rest of Newport Richey really easily, or get down to Highway 54 really easily, or down to Trinity really easily. Then just to the north of it, a few miles, is Ridge Road. Ridge Road connects to the Veterans Expressway, so you can get down to Tampa pretty easily as well. So super versatile area if you need to commute down to Tampa or down to Carrollwood. If you need to go down there to work, it's a really interesting option. Our clients that choose Newport Richey often choose it because it is a little bit more rural. So I live on an acre, and my whole neighborhood has lots that big. You can find a lot more things like that, or you just have a lot more preserve and green space in between everything. And now that we're talking about Pasco County, let's talk about Pasco County for that reason. 1/3 of Pasco County is state preserve, meaning it can never be developed. Now, Pasco County is developing fast. They're estimating it's gonna go from 500,000 to 1 million residents in 20 to 30 years. I've seen mixed numbers on that. That's very fast growth, and it's one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And Newport Richey is part of that growth as well. There have been some other new developments proposed that I don't know if they will happen. There's this chunk of 800 acres that's kind of in Trinity, just north of Trinity, which Trinity is kind of just like a special area of Newport Richey. They want to call it Trinity. All the land was owned by this one ophthalmologist, and he started selling it to developers trying to make this town of the future kind of thing. There's a little Christian college there in the Trinity area called Trinity College, but this 800 acres that's just to the north of Trinity, they proposed developing it and calling it Trinity, which is super annoying. But they want to make a big sports and entertainment center. Think about it. If you've been to Disney down here, Disney Springs is kind of this downtown entertainment central area for all the Disney parks. They want to make it kind of like that. But the thing is, it's 7 times bigger than Disney Springs just because of how much land it is. So they're looking at stadiums and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it'll actually get approved. That's one of the areas in that more developed Newport Richey area where you can still see cattle. Locals have chosen this area for those kind of reasons. Okay, speaking of that area where you can see cattle still, which there's a bunch of babies right now. We drove by there yesterday. My kids love looking at them. But as you go that way, you leave Newport Richey and you go into Odessa. Now, this is Odessa in Pasco County. There's also Odessa addresses in Hillsborough County, but those aren't in the town of Odessa. They're in the area of Keystone, but they have Odessa addresses. It's kind of confusing. But Odessa in Pasco County, Starkey Ranch, Astoria, the Preserve, a lot of neighborhoods along Highway 54. It's a really cool, kind of nice suburban area, a little more manicured than a lot of the Newport Richey neighborhoods, and has more of that kind of master planned vibe. But Odessa also just melds into another town, Land O'Lakes. And you don't really know where they're divided. They're actually divided at the Veterans Expressway. But everything right there feels really similar. If you lived in one of those towns, you go to the others, and you kind of interchange all that stuff. Odessa and Land O'Lakes makes up about 40 to 50,000 people, depending on how big Odessa is in your mind. But there's not really any more new development in Odessa. There is in Land O'Lakes. In Land O'Lakes, you have the new Angeline neighborhood up to the north along Highway 52. Even in Bexley, just to the south of that, they're still building some. And then a recent video about Deerbrook, they're building quite a bit of houses as well. I said 500 in that video, but I found out it's like 410. There are quite a few opportunities in Land O'Lakes, and that whole area is gonna get more connected to the Veterans Expressway as well. Part of that bigger plan is connecting everything to the Veterans Expressway because it's the main evacuation route for storms. But also by connecting all these areas to the Veterans Expressway, it's just more commercial areas are being developed around those connections. And especially just south of the Angeline neighborhood, Moffett is building this new research facility. There's a big school there. And they're gonna build like a town center. Apartments are already up right there. The town center will be connected to the Angeline Lagoon, which is like the big swimming center for the neighborhood. You can pay to go in. But then there'll also be other commercial things that connects to the Angeline Preserve where you can walk around, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's Odessa and Land O'Lakes. Our clients that choose those areas are, it's kind of similar to Newport Richey, but it's a little bit more of a manicured vibe. Also, it is a little bit closer to commute paths if you do need to commute down into Tampa. Okay, now going over one more town, we have Lutz. Lutz, people call it, and they talk about Lutz, and we get to tell them how to say it. It's always a fun one. Lutz comes in at number 9 on our list for a lot of reasons. Now, like I said, this isn't really a priority list. I'm just numbering the top 13 areas that our clients choose. Lutz gets chosen for two different reasons. Lutz is also in 2 different counties. Lutz is in Pasco County and Lutz is in Hillsborough County. Our clients choose Lutz in Hillsborough County a lot because of the public schools. You can go to this cluster of schools, Steinbrenner High, Martinez, and McKittrick. I always get mixed up if Martinez is elementary or McKittrick is elementary, but those are the names. They're all in one like big campus right there on the corner of Lutz Lake Fern Road and Veterans Expressway. There's quite a few neighborhoods right there that go to those schools. Even if you're on the other side of Veterans, you're actually in Odessa, some of those neighborhoods also go to those schools. That area is really interesting because it feels like very nice and suburban, but it doesn't have the commercial things that you would expect a suburb to have. There's not big grocery stores, there's not Whole Foods, there's not Trader Joe's. If you go further up in Lutz, you get some of that stuff, but then you're up in Pasco County and you're really up in kind of different suburbs. But Lutz in Pasco County has a pretty similar vibe to all the other Pasco suburbs. Super accessible, and everything kind of runs along that Highway 54 corridor. Compared to Land O'Lakes and Wesley Chapel though, Lutz just feels a little bit older. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but even the neighborhoods right there along Collier, right off 54, they just feel a little bit older. They're 30 years old. They're more established in a lot of ways, but that also means stuff isn't often updated. There is a big new development right there that's, I think, finished. I think Long Lake is actually finished. We've sold a few houses in there. It's a really cool, kind of manicured feeling neighborhood, but that's what you're gonna get more in Pasco County, is this kind of manicured suburban feel. One of the truly best things about Lutz is actually just how central it is. Kind of like West Chase, Lutz is kind of right in the middle of everything. You can get up to the newer suburban stuff and you can get down into Tampa really easily. Even down into Citrus Park, into West Chase, all that's really easy. Now, if you're going to the beach, it's taking a while, but it's very accessible. Okay, next on the list is Wesley Chapel. One of our most asked about areas. The thing is, when people ask us about Wesley Chapel, they often end up buying houses around Wesley Chapel. It's kind of funny, but Wesley Chapel is about 60,000 people. It got super popular during the pandemic. It has just grown into be like a very nice, popular suburb for the Tampa area. A lot of that comes on the tails of a lot of new construction along Highway 54, which turns into State Road 60. Like, there's a lot of nice neighborhoods. Then as you go further north, even more nice neighborhoods kind of behind the shops at Wiregrass. Then even up further, you have the big Epperson Crystal Lagoon community. You go up further, just out of Wesley Chapel into San Antonio, you have the Murata neighborhood, another big Crystal Lagoon neighborhood. But around all that stuff, you have a lot of old stuff too, with bigger lots, with preserve behind it. There's a couple of really quirky neighborhoods where you can like have horses that can easily access these trails. But way back in the day, it was the Saddlebrook Resort that made Wesley Chapel popular. Big golf course community that they're actually renovating right now. And this was just quintessential like suburb Florida lifestyle, manicured golf course outside of this bigger town. Like, it just kind of fit that bill. Then this area just started to develop more and more around it, especially when the Porter family started selling off more land to be developed. I'm trying to actually connect with JD Porter and talk to him about more of the plans for all this land. They still own about 5,000 acres. They're on the south side of Wesley Chapel. They sold a lot to build the Meadow Point neighborhood and all these phases. They did the shops at Wiregrass. They've done all these other neighborhoods and amenities for the community, and I'm really curious kind of what he sees for the future. Wesley Chapel is still one of the great spots to buy new construction in the Tampa area. It is kind of up in the corner of the area though. So commuting, you're going down I-75 to 275, or you're going all over to Veterans. But something I see happening in these northern suburbs is them transitioning away from being bedroom communities to having more work available in them. Now, that'll take years, right? But I think that is going to happen as people want that more and more. People don't want to commute down into the big city all the time to work, and other satellite offices are being built in these areas. And even I think the Moffitt Cancer Research Center that's going in Land O'Lakes is a good testament to what can be developed around here. Wesley Chapel does have nice amenities. Now you have like the Tampa Premium Outlets, which are technically in Lutz, but right there on the corner of like Lutz, Land O'Lakes, and Wesley Chapel. Then in Wesley Chapel, you have the shops at Wiregrass. You have the Grove, which is kind of like a Best Buy kind of thing area, you know what I mean? And then in front of that, you have the Crate, which won like top development of the year. I don't know if that was in Florida or if that was a bigger thing. It's a cool thing. It's like 35 shipping containers, and it's like little restaurants and shops with a lot of outdoor seating, and then like an event space, and then with like a stage, things like that. And it's very popular. It's right there on I-75. You can see it as you're coming into the area. But it's actually just a really cool concept. There's a similar concept downtown in Tampa at Sparkman's Wharf. And this just kind of took it and made it bigger, made it a lot more space out in the suburbs to do something like that. But it's really cool. I like to point this out. Wesley Chapel is only about 60,000 people. And for that size of town, it gets a lot of attention. But a lot of that attention also helps it grow and develop into a nicer area for you guys. Okay, we're gonna keep going clockwise around the map, and we're gonna go over to Riverview. We have some clients that just closed last week in Riverview, Colton and Kirsty, and they had a really unique situation because he runs a business from home and needed a place with a mother-in-law suite. Out in the Riverview area, you just see a little bit more unique properties. Now there are some newer neighborhoods that are like, brand new. You can buy a little bit of new construction still in that area. Riverview is about 100,000 people. Very connected to Brandon. Brandon is a little bit more the commercial side of that area, Riverview being more neighborhoods. Clients that choose Riverview often choose it because they get a little bit more bang for their buck. They can get a little more size, maybe a little bit more space. And the commute into Tampa isn't horrible. The drive over to the beach or any of these coastal towns is pretty rough from Riverview in general. But the commute into Tampa isn't terrible. There's a couple toll roads, and it slows down a lot during typical commute times. If you can avoid typical commute times, or you can work right in that area, it's really a great option. There's a lot of diversity of communities, a lot of like beautiful tree-lined neighborhoods that are really attractive. And if you're looking for something not brand new, that is a little quirky, like our clients bought this house. It's a ranch-style house with 2 mother-in-law suites. Super cool. Okay, next on the list, which first of all, if you made it this long in the video, give us a call for sure. We want to connect and just see where on this list you fall. We love to connect with you and just find a variety of answers. Fishhawk, the next on the list, often feels like West Chase, which was the first on the list. But Fishhawk is similar to West Chase in a lot of ways. And I like to make that comparison because it's a master plan community developed by one developer and plopped down in this area. Fishhawk Ranch is the main neighborhood, which has all different variety of houses. Fishhawk Trails is another neighborhood that connects to it that's gated. Bigger houses, bigger lots. Fishhawk has good schools, good public schools. That's often why people choose it. And I understand that a lot of you don't need to get to the beach. Or if you do, it's gonna be a day trip and you're fine with an hour 15 and it's not a big deal. Out in that area, I'd probably go down to Anna Maria Island if I'm going to the beach. But it is an area that people choose often. Okay, last on the list is Parrish. Parrish is in Manatee County and has tons of new construction and very affordable options. There's a couple neighborhoods down here that we've been selling a lot of houses in. Now it's trying to be like Wesley Chapel in some ways. It's trying to be like Sarasota, like Lakewood Ranch area in some ways. Like North River Ranch is a big neighborhood that's very similar to Lakewood Ranch. Just like they call it mini Lakewood Ranch. And then Sea Air is one of those big Crystal Lagoon neighborhoods that Metro Places is building down there. But Down in the area, you just have stretches of new construction, which is great for you guys because you can get great interest rates, you can get great prices. And if you're commuting to St. Petersburg, this is one of the new construction neighborhoods and areas that's a really good option. Now, if you're commuting to Tampa from Parrish, it's just gonna slow down a lot during typical commute times. But our clients choose Parrish all the time, and it's a really great option in a lot of ways, and it's also really early in kind of the growth of that area. As the Tampa area gets even closer to Bradenton and Sarasota, they're kind of doing it through Parrish. All right, if you made it to the end of this video, we definitely want to hear from you. Give us a call, text, or email anytime, and don't forget to register for the next webinar. We hope to see you there.